everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily and I talk a lot about Salesforce. Today I'm going to be going over how I passed the Salesforce AI Associate certification. I hadn't planned on making any more of the How I Passed series this year, just because of how crazy life can be. But they released the AI Associate and I had a lot of people reaching out to me if I was going to take it and if I was going to make content on it. So yes, there's a plug for, I do have a course for passing the AI Associate, and we'll get into later kind of how I formulated that. But if you want to check it out, that'll be in the description down below or on salesforceupskill.com. You can also check out in the links down below the How I Passed series. This is my 6th certification from Salesforce. And so I go over how I passed each certification, the resources that I used, my background, that kind of thing in all of those videos. So you can check out the link to that down below in the description. Finally, there will be links for timestamps if you want to move to certain points of the video. If you want to come back to this video and save certain parts, feel free to do so. So the first part that I do want to cover is what is the AI Associate exam. So this AI Associate exam kind of goes over the basics of AI and kind of how to use it within Salesforce. Not a lot of how to use it within Salesforce, just a little bit. Let's go into the sections. All right, so it's going to be AI fundamentals at 17%, AI capabilities in CRM at 8%, which is the smallest part, ethical considerations of AI at 39%, which is going to be the biggest section, and then data for AI at 36%. So from those sections, you can tell that a lot is going to be skewed, like almost over 70% is going to be ethics and data, which made this exam fairly straightforward, as well as you could use context clues of the different pieces of the questions that were asked to be able to narrow down your answer. Really common sense. If you've taken the sales rep exam or the business analyst exam, it's structured fairly similarly, where it doesn't talk too much about the in-depth features of Salesforce and how to use those features in practice, but rather it talks a lot about different theories relating to AI. So with this, it's going to talk a lot about biases and how to keep your data clean within your CRM to best use the AI tools. So to know a few things about the exam, like the regular associate exam, this exam had 40 questions. They were all multiple choice and they were choose 1 out of 3. So that makes it fairly easy for you to go ahead and eliminate one answer or be able to just pick out the answer based upon the question fairly quickly. So the time that we did have to complete this exam was 70 minutes. So that turns out to be 1 hour and 10 minutes. And personally, I felt like that was plenty of time. I did take this exam in my native language, and so it was fairly easy for me to understand the questions. Your mileage may vary based upon your familiarity with AI, or if you're taking it in a language that is not your native language or your first language. This is going to have a passing score of 65%, which I think is about for 25 questions that you need to be able to pass on the exam. So personally, if I were you, well, I would learn a lot of the fundamentals of AI based upon the section, so then you can understand the context for later questions. I want to focus heavier on studying the ethical considerations as well as using data for AI. But again, the AI fundamentals is going to be super important just so that you know what they're talking about in those later on questions. The registration fee is about $75 US plus applicable tax. Again, this might vary based upon where you are, language you're taking the exam in. And like the other associate exam, the retakes are free. So there really is no harm of just taking it. And even if you fail it, no one else is going to know that you failed it, and retake is going to be free. So you could take it just to get familiar with it. If you pass it, fantastic. If you don't, then you can go ahead and study a little bit more and you'll be better prepared for the second try, which is free. Personally, I really like taking exams online, which I did, and I felt like that was a great experience. And there are no prerequisites to this exam, so you don't have to have associate, you don't have to have admin, you can just take it this afternoon if you wanted to, and there were available times. And no hard copy materials were allowed. However, one thing that they have changed recently, I think this year sometime on Salesforce exams, was the ability to take notes. So on one side of the screen, you are gonna have your questions, and there's gonna be like a little bar right here, and then there will be like a little box right here for you to type in notes. Personally, I find that super helpful. One, to visualize if I'm crossing off and using the process of elimination. That's super helpful to be able to visualize it. 2, sometimes I want to write things down that I remember in the process of answering a question that might come in handy later on. Sometimes I'll have it where a question will spark something in my mind that will help me answer another question. So that is kind of the AI associate exam. Again, it was super term heavy, and it was also very common sense, or maybe not so much common sense, as it was very easy to pick up the answers just based upon the questions that they were asking. So my background when taking the exam is going to be the next section that I want to talk about. So I am not super into AI, and I have been very, very hesitant of AI and using AI. A lot of older media portrays AI as being really, really scary, being sentient where it comes and attacks humans, as I'm sure a lot of people have seen those movies. So I was really, really hesitant taking the exam. The AI tools one are not going to be like that within Salesforce, and the associate exam kind of talks about, at least in the study materials that I reviewed, talk a lot about how to be ethical and make sure it doesn't do that. So the extent of AI that I do know of was how much Jeremy, my husband, has talked to me about AI, which he is actually super into, but it's been more along the lines of how to use ChatGPT or how to use Midjourney to create really cool images. So that was about the extent of my AI knowledge. And again, there wasn't a lot about using AI within Salesforce. Now let's talk about the resources that I used to pass the exam that were really helpful. So one, I did use the trail mix that is provided by Salesforce to help you pass. That was extremely overwhelming, to say the least. So it is about 26 hours to complete, and a lot of it was bouncing around between different things. It did help me understand the fundamentals of AI. It did not help me to feel confident when taking the exam because it felt like a fire hose of information that goes in extremely into depth, way more so than you need for the exam. So keep that in mind when you are preparing for the exam, that the trail mix is really overdoes it as far as helping you understand the basics of AI. Another resource that I used was Cloud Qualified here on YouTube by Frank. He's a friend of the channel, and he has some of the basics of AI and some of the introductory things that you'll need to know as far as understanding what is AI and what you really need to know for the exam. Other resources that I use is there's a blog. I think his name is Dinesh. He has some notes of the different concepts that you'll need to know and to understand for passing, as well as he has some free practice questions that you can go through. So I think that was 4 resources in total that I used when studying for this exam. This exam is super new, and so there aren't a lot of resources out there yet. So just keep that in mind when you are searching for resources for this exam. Now this kind of moves me into my next section, which is the additional resources that are available. So we are super excited to have launched our AI Associate course, which covers all that you need to know for the exam. We formulate this course in the process of getting the certification as well as after the certification, so then we know that we are hitting the mark when it comes to creating a resource that will really help you pass on the first or second try. So the different pieces of our course that really help people to pass. So we have a full video lecture series that covers the different sections of the exam, the different key concepts that you'll need to know, as well as how you would use it in real life and in Salesforce going forward. And my husband Jeremy, he does a really awesome job of creating the glossary, different practice questions, a full-length practice exam, as well as some notes from the trailhead, so then that can save you time, so then you don't really have to go through the whole trail mix and waste your time with a lot of fluff when you're trying to get the certification. So I'll leave a link down to that down below in the description, or you can find it on salesforceupskill.com. All right, the final part here is going to be my personal thoughts on the exam, as well as kind of going over some of the common questions that I've received about the exam before I got it and since I've gotten it. So this exam was really interesting. I feel like I say that about every exam. This exam was super interesting. I wouldn't say it was difficult like the admin exam was for me to be able to pass. I mean, the admin exam, especially if it's your first, is going to be difficult just because of the nature of it. It covers a lot and it bounces around a lot. The AI associate exam does not bounce around a lot. It is very overlapping, and it might be the most overlapping exam that I have taken as far as overlapping between the different sections. So you might find a question that you would think would belong in one section when it really belongs in another section. Personally, what I think it means for the community, I think it's a great way to show that you have some proficiency in AI. I would imagine that Salesforce would come out with more certifications that were AI focused, such as an AI consultant or maybe an AI developer. But this one at least shows you for right now that you have some proficiency in Salesforce AI, which there isn't really anything else to show that you do have that. Some of the questions I've got relates to when to get this certification. I don't think that you need to get this certification if you are very new to Salesforce. Personally, did not go heavy into Salesforce. So if you are getting your first few certifications, I would still recommend that you get associate and then admin, and then go along with getting like app builder or getting business analyst or another one of those certifications. The AI associate certification to me felt more like it was, again, like a specialty certification like you would see for a Sales Cloud consultant certification, or you would see for a data cloud, or for one of the data architect certifications. And it's not too necessary unless you are looking specifically to get a job where you are going to leverage AI for Salesforce right away. But with that being said, those are kind of my thoughts on the exam and how I passed the exam. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to give it a like, subscribe. You can check out my full playlist of how I passed down below, as well as the AI associate course that we have released. We're super excited for it. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter at EmilyCallMBA. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.